Okay, we still have more people entering, but I just want to welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Rachel Heller, the CEO of CHAPA, and I want to thank you for joining the conversation, Housing and the Massachusetts Economy and How You Can Help. I am delighted to be joined today by housing hero, Lieutenant Governor Kim Driscoll, and an esteemed group of speakers representing Kendall Square Association, the Massachusetts Business Roundtable, Boston Impact Initiative, French Press Bakery and Cafe, DeWitt Impact Group, and the Charles River Chamber. I also just want to thank all of you local leaders who've been working in your communities every day to expand housing opportunities so that everyone has the opportunity to have a safe, healthy, affordable place to call home in the community they choose. We are coming together today because we all know that housing is fundamental to the health of people, our communities, the Commonwealth, and our economy. Today, we are going to hear from business leaders who can share the impacts and the importance of housing on their businesses and their sectors. We will then spend some time talking about this particular moment and why this is a moment for us to be taking action and putting Massachusetts on the path to a bright future where we all can thrive. We'll then hear from the Lieutenant Governor about what we can all do to create the 200,000 homes that the Commonwealth needs by 2030 across income levels. And then we'll move into a conversation about the campaign that CHAPA is launching to change the conversation at the state and local levels so we can hit that 200,000 number, creating the 200,000 homes across income levels that we all need for our state to thrive. And of course, we'll wrap up with how you can get involved. Please be sure to use the chat and go ahead and put questions in there and make comments, and we'll be sure to carve out some time to answer some of those questions. But to get us started, we are first going to hear from business leaders. Now, we recognize that businesses in every region of the state are impacted by housing, and we will be creating many more opportunities to hear from businesses from the Berkshires to the Cape and Islands. Today, we are kicking it off with comments from Beth O'Neill Maloney, the Executive Director of Kendall Square Association. Beth, thank you so much for your leadership on this, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Rachel. Thank you for having me, and it's a privilege to have the opportunity to speak to this group. The Kendall Square Association and all our 150 plus organizational members care about housing. Housing is shelter. It's essential on a human level, and we also care about housing because it's essential to our economic competitiveness right here in Kendall Square and throughout the Commonwealth. We need to have the housing here so that we can grow, attract, and retain people to Massachusetts, the kind of people who want to improve the human condition through life sciences, through climate tech, and all kinds of innovation. We cannot afford to have people leave Massachusetts at the current rate. I'm not sure how many of you have seen the recent BU study on outmigration, but it's very concerning. There's a large percentage of people are leaving Massachusetts and moving to states where the cost of housing and the housing burden, meaning the proportion of household income that's allocated towards housing, is significantly lower than here in Massachusetts. So to do to attract and retain people here, and retaining is really, really important, we need to really look at ways to increase the density. What we have said within the community here in Kendall Square, and we strongly believe, is that it's time for us to really think about who do we want to be? Do we want to be a welcoming, thriving community? I think the answer is yes. And that's why, we have made housing a priority. I'm sure that we'll hear from the Lieutenant Governor and others about ways we can help, but I would ask everyone on the call to think about how we can support locally increasing housing density in all of our communities. And at the state level, we are pleased to support both all of the activity that's happening around all of the positive activity happening around the MBTA Communities Act, as well as getting behind the Affordable Homes Act. So thank you, and I appreciate your time and everyone's energy on this really critical topic. So thank you.
Thank you, Beth. And now we are going to turn it over to JD Chesloff, the President and CEO of the Massachusetts Business Roundtable. JD?
Thanks, Rachel. Good morning, everybody. For those of you who don't know, the Roundtable is a group of about 95 CEOs and senior executives from larger employers across the state. And every year, we conduct a survey of them in partnership with McKinsey. We just wrapped up this year's survey, and even though we haven't released it yet, I just thought I would share some data to back up a lot of what we are all talking about today. Let me start by saying this. We did hear from our members that companies, by and large, do like being here in Massachusetts. They cite access to talent, the education system, access to world-renowned industry clusters, the innovation ecosystem. I mean, there's still, in many ways, this is like no other place in the world, and let's not forget that. Having said that, we did find that it's becoming increasingly difficult to attract and retain top talent here. And while the Massachusetts economy is growing, it's increasingly growth is being lost to other states. The reason most commonly cited for that, obviously, has been housing. In fact, here's some quotes from our survey. One member said, our colleges are ripe with great folks that we can hire here, but they're not going to remain in Massachusetts simply because it's so expensive. Another said the affordability index, especially for entry-level team members and in the urban core, is a real impediment and challenge for us. The lack of housing is the biggest risk for Massachusetts. So some quick data points. Companies have cited the cost of living as the dominant factor in their decisions about expanding and reducing their presence here. And it's become an increasingly significant factor, up 2.5 times over the past 2 years. And we do this survey every year. The most difficult driver of the inability to find talent to fill open jobs in the past has been just the difficulty in finding people, which was primarily a result of a tight labor market. This year, the dominant factor cited was the inability to get people to move here and relocate here, again, due to the high cost of housing. To compensate, a growing number of Massachusetts companies are planning to grow their workforce outside of Massachusetts, which is particularly troubling. A quarter of our members have been recruited to locate in other states. So for an economy that has historically been based on the access to the best talent in the world, this really is a direct threat to our competitiveness. We then asked about solutions to improving the state's competitiveness. 91% said investments in housing production, 91%. What was striking to me was not that housing was identified as the top solution. What was striking to me was that there was a nearly unanimous agreement about that solution. So that brings us to where we are today, right? There's discussion about the role the business community can play in addressing the housing crisis and identifying ways to collaborate with the public sector to address it. So I just want to thank the Lieutenant Governor for convening us, Rachel, for your leadership, and for all of you for being here to figure out how we can work together toward a solution. So with that, back to you, Rachel.
Thank you. And I love that everybody's already solution-oriented here. That is where we are going. As the Lieutenant Governor says, we will not admire this problem any longer. We're going to do something about it. Now we are going to hear from Betty Francisco, the CEO of Boston Impact Initiative. Betty, thank you so much. It's an honor to have you join us today.
Rachel, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the chance to comment here. So I'm the CEO of BII, which is focused on investing both in entrepreneurs of color, but also in community-owned and controlled real estate. We identified 2 years ago when we were launching our new fund that the housing crisis was so acute, especially in communities of color and low-income communities. And so we decided to allocate a portion of our fund specifically to supporting both the acquisition of naturally occurring affordable housing to prevent further displacement, but also to support new development, especially development by builders of color that want to create housing that's has opportunities for ownership, but also collaborative or cooperative ownership. And so I'll comment on 2 things. One is we also invest in small businesses throughout our region that are social ventures, and we're part of a coalition for an equitable economy, which also does a small business survey, more with smaller organizations that have 500 or less employees. And this year, that survey showed, which is conducted by Massing Polling Group, it showed similar results to JD's business survey, which is the high cost of housing and cost of living pose the biggest challenges to our smaller businesses. At the top is the cost of living in the area makes it difficult to recruit employees and retain employees. Many of these companies cite losing employees to other states because of the high cost of living. And the second top issue is the cost of housing makes it difficult to find employees and keep them here. So with that, where our focus is to help support small businesses that are creating good jobs right here in Massachusetts that pay living wages and that create opportunities for advancement. The cost of housing and the housing crisis pose a direct threat to us achieving that goal, right, of keeping wealth in our state. In fact, some of our pipeline companies have told us that they're getting recruited to come into other states like New York, upstate New York, getting large incentives to go there, but also the cost of housing there is so much lower and the cost of living is lower. And so these are formidable threats, right, to us maintaining a thriving economy in our state. So I do want to mention we talk a lot about solutions, namely building more affordable housing, which is extremely important. We must do that. We have to get to that 200,000 or more number, but we also have an opportunity to preserve naturally occurring affordable housing. So some of the work that BII is doing with a number of other impact investors, foundations, philanthropy, and the business community is to also support the buyback of real estate to keep it affordable forever. And to do that, we need public subsidy. We need philanthropy to step in and provide subsidy and guarantees. And we need the business community to also provide support so that we create creative ways to address the housing crisis, from employer housing, social housing, but also deeply, deeply affordable housing to keep our residents here, and namely help continue to support our most vulnerable, our lower income residents, our service professionals that want to stay here but can't afford to live here. Thank you.
Betty, thank you so much. And thank you for bringing up the importance of preservation. Adding 200,000 homes really only gets us to stabilizing home prices and rents when we're holding on to the homes that we've got, and especially the homes that are affordable for people. So thank you so much for highlighting that. Now I have the honor to turn it over to Jay Spencer, the owner and founder of French Press Bakery and Cafe, a very tasty place I highly recommend in Needham. Jay?
Thank you, Rachel. I appreciate the plug. I'm an independent business owner. As many of you may or may have not been to our place, we're an artisan cafe. Everything is done on site in Needham. Since our founding, everything is all natural, and we enjoy being able to serve the community. What this means for us in terms of the MBTA Communities Act is vibrancy. It's all about creating more foot traffic within our town centers and being able to hire and retain talent. When we talk about foot traffic, it's really, when you look at what it takes to develop a restaurant from concept to operating, many operators are not able to sustain themselves because of the zoning barriers, because of the revenue fluctuations, where they don't believe or realize that many of our businesses are seasonal. We're getting ready to go into the summer, and many of the onshore, as I call it, businesses are really going to suffer because everyone goes away. Being able to create a housing situation where you have different classes and different people who can support your business throughout the year makes it more economical for us to be able to not only survive, but to also thrive. We make different investments in our business in order to support those items, right? When you look at the patios, when you look at seasonal parties and things like that, because we have more revenue coming in, we're able to do more, not only for the community, but also for our employees. The second thing that I want to talk about is talent. For over 10 years, a good portion of our staff comes from Boston to Needham. They take the bus, they take the train. Very few of them have even driver's license or drive cars. So it takes them anywhere from an hour to an hour and a half to commute. So when people want their food, whether it be a coffee or a sandwich that's made to order at 7 o'clock instead of 7:30, we're at the mercy of what transportation or talent options are available. So being able to create housing that's local, creates a larger talent pool for us to pull from, to where we may be able to operate our businesses a little bit earlier or a little bit more later than what we normally would. It also creates an opportunity for people to own their home for the first time. It's one thing that we don't talk about a lot. I hope through this zoning change that there is a lot of discussion and consideration and policies that really allow people to buy their home for the first time. I remember when I graduated from undergrad and being able to buy a condo, and it being one of the biggest investments that I had at the time, but more importantly, being something that I could call my own. So you create a different community, you create a different lifestyle, you create different levels of income and support for people to be able to not only contribute to their local community, but to also be able to give back. So Rachel, I really encourage this group and those that are part of this solution to really push forward this zoning change. It doesn't deliver the housing immediately. It's a zoning change that will allow people to come in, and perhaps even one day for me to go into a location where I can own the building to which I operate my own business. So thank you, and I look forward to the fruits of this very hard labor really coming out to bear.
Thank you so much. Thank you for hitting on so many important topics in your comments. And thank you for speaking up locally and helping the Needham community understand the importance of housing to your employees, to what it means to Needham. It's just sets a great example for all of us. Now, we're not in a room, so you can't all give thunderous applause, but I do hope you will do Zoom applause or, little snaps in the air to thank our panelists for really making the case and highlighting how critical housing is to the future of all of us and our economy and the Commonwealth. I'm going to take a few moments right now just to talk about why this is the moment and why it is so much on the part of the Massachusetts brand to step up and solve problems like this. And then we will turn it over to our housing hero, Lieutenant Governor. So let me go ahead and share my screen. Okay, excellent. So here in Massachusetts, we all flourish when the neighborhoods and the places we love flourish. All right, my screen is not changing like I wanted to. There we go. Sorry about that. And that is why we so often come together in this state to keep our neighborhoods nourished, to make sure people have what they need to grow strong. This truly is the Massachusetts brand. We were the first in the nation to invest in everyone having healthcare coverage. We were the first to recognize same-sex marriage and really invest in the power of love. And we are leading the way when it comes to investing in homes. Massachusetts has long been a leader on housing. We are one of the few states in the country that has our own public housing and rental assistance programs. We have new homeownership production programs that were created in the last 5 years. We are one of the only states that actually requires every community to have affordable housing. This is something that is part of who we are as a state. And the time for collective action is now. We all know we're all living the lasting impacts of the COVID pandemic and the damaging legacy of racial injustice. This is a moment for us to learn from what we have all gone through and really what our state has experienced throughout history when it comes to land use and who it impacts and who really gets left out. So is this a moment where we will continue to be Massachusetts and we will take action and we will put ourselves on the path to a bright future? Or will we look back in 20 years and see that we didn't take action and continued to have the negative impacts and go in the opposite direction of where we need to go? I know we are the Massachusetts that's going to put ourselves on the path forward. And the decisions that we make every day, you've heard Jay talk about the MBTA Communities Act. That's one decision that we are making today. The decisions we make today will determine the future that this state has. And Massachusetts should always be a place where our communities nourish us and help us grow. Right now, you heard JD say it, you heard Betty say it. Housing is the best investment that we can be making in this state so that we secure the future that we all want and we all deserve. And when we have a diverse mix of homes, it means that we are strengthening our economy, that everybody can build wealth, that we are protecting our environment by really focusing our new development in places that allow us to conserve and preserve our open spaces. It means that the quality of our kids' education is strong when teachers can live near our schools and kids have a place to sleep at night that's safe and stable. And when we invest in housing, the outcomes are just tremendous for everyone. And I think you heard pieces of that in each of our speakers already. So when we invest in homes, what that means, and it's important, I think we say homes and not units. These are places where people live. When we invest in home, that means that kids can live near their grandparents, that schools have teachers, entrepreneurs can take a chance. It means that renters can become homeowners. It means that people can stay in the communities that they love. And right now, we have leadership at every level that agrees that we need to do something about housing and that we can do something, and now is the time. We have the research. We know that we need 200,000 homes by the end of this decade to stabilize home prices and rents. We know we need to focus on creating homes and preserving homes, as Betty pointed out, for people across income levels. And housing really does benefit us all. It benefits people. We heard from Jay what homeownership means, what it means to be able to live near where you work. It benefits our communities by creating economic vibrancy and vitality in our communities. And it impacts our systems. It impacts our healthcare systems, our education and workforce development systems. It makes people more innovative and more productive when we all have homes that we can afford, places that we choose to live. So we have a plan. We have a plan to get us to that 200,000 homes we need. And when we talk about 200,000 homes, this is about everyone. So that means we do need market rate homes, and it means we need affordable homes. We need homes that are affordable for people with low and moderate incomes, and we need homes for people with low and extremely low incomes. We need a diversity of housing types that we simply don't have enough of today. And there's really never been a better moment to put Massachusetts on this path. Again, it's a top priority of the residents. It's a top priority of our business leaders. It's a top priority of our elected officials. We have new zoning tools in place, the MBTA Communities Act. We've actually had 68 communities adopt multifamily zoning. This is a big deal. This is a change. This is now communities are planning. We're beginning to say yes to more homes. When we say yes, we can then figure out how. So this is a big step forward, but it's not limited to the MBTA communities. There are opportunities in every single one of the cities and towns in Massachusetts to make changes to what we allow through zoning, to approve projects, to invest in the housing that we so greatly need. And that brings us to the Affordable Massachusetts campaign, this coalition that we are launching that will bring together people from every sector. We want to bring together business leaders, civic leaders, nonprofit leaders, faith leaders, all of you. We want to bring everyone together to change this conversation at the state level and the local level and really make the case for housing and make the case for the bright future that we deserve here in this state. So with that, I am going to stop sharing my screen so that we can turn it over to the Lieutenant Governor, really a person who needs no introduction. Lieutenant Governor has been such an incredible advocate for housing for many years. She brings this to this current role as Lieutenant Governor, but it comes from her time as mayor and service different roles that she held in the city of Salem, where she saw the importance of housing to the people, to the economy, and really to the amazing character. We all love Salem. Salem's a great place because there's so much focus on making sure that the city has what it needs to thrive, and that means the people and the businesses. So I will now turn it over again to a person who needs no introduction, Lieutenant Governor. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks so much, Rachel, and thanks for that, not only that warm introduction. I'm just so glad to be on a large Zoom with so many people who are plugged in, understanding the need, and anxious to get to work. So I'm thrilled to join you to celebrate this kickoff for Affordable Massachusetts. And it is great to have so many individuals like giving up your lunch, eager to do this work, to learn how you can help, to think about ways that we can undertake this task together. And the great thing about this is, in my estimation, like, we know what we have to do. We're not trying to cure cancer, although I'm pretty sure if cancer is cured, it's going to be because of the hardworking scientists and doctors here in Massachusetts. We know what we have to do to tackle our housing crisis. And certainly Governor Healy and I know that, having access to the type of housing you need in your community, particularly affordable housing, is the biggest challenge facing our Commonwealth. You've heard it from some of the speakers beforehand who all bring a different lens to this, taking on different roles or different work and within their communities. And it is, in our estimation, just the most comprehensive way that we can address the needs of the Commonwealth. We hear it every day from residents, from local government, from state officials, that we have young people, families, seniors, just unable to afford to live here and unable to live in the communities they helped make, the place they were raised, the community where their support systems are. So honestly, from day one, we have just taken this challenge on. We are done admiring the problem. Every single one of us could tell us why housing is so expensive, why it's been so hard, why we haven't built enough of it. We can't admire the problem anymore. And we knew we had to put in place some structures and some resources to help. So we named the first housing secretary in decades and put Secretary Ed Augustus to work as our cabinet secretary, the head of housing and livable communities. And it really is both. How do we build housing and create livable communities? Working every day to make our state more affordable and accessible to everyone is Ed's #1 job. We filed the Affordable Homes Act. I hope you're all following that and advocating for that. It's a $4 billion investment that stands as the largest housing investment in our state's history, and that's because we need it. This bill would create or preserve, and that's really important because we do have housing here that is permanently affordable, that needs work. We have housing that's naturally occurring that we need to preserve, and obviously we need to build a number of new homes. And under this bill, we think we can add 70,000 homes across every region of this Commonwealth, expand tax credits to incentivize the production of housing, and provide communities with the tools they need to address their own unique housing challenges. The needs of housing in Salem and how we tackle it might be different than how we tackle it in Pittsfield or on the Cape. And the flexibility of giving locals the tools they need is really key. The state doesn't build housing generally. It happens in communities at the local level. And like all of you, we're going out on the road to sell this bill and to show why these solutions will work right now and in the long run to solve this housing crisis. The governor and myself, along with all of our cabinet secretaries, have really crisscrossed the state this last month. And of course, we're definitely talking about housing production, but we know there's more to this, tackling this crisis as well. Finding solutions for first-time homebuyers who can start to build the American dream. Just this morning, I was at UMass Boston for their commencement and seeing nearly 4,000 graduates at just one of our public higher ed institutions, all brimming with hope and optimism and talent. We want to make sure they can stay here and create the kind of intergenerational wealth that too often escapes too many folks. We were in Haverhill earlier this week and talked about why we want to authorize $50 million for Mass Dreams to create first-time homebuyer opportunities for households in disproportionately impacted communities. We heard from a family who had already benefited from Mass Dreams and what it meant to them. We had $100 million in the Commonwealth Builder Program, also as part of this grant, the Affordable Homes Act, that we think can spur construction of affordable single-family homes in gateway cities, something that doesn't happen on its own, and a new homeowner tax credit, again, trying to spur first-time home buyers, addressing some of the wealth and equity gaps that we know exist within Massachusetts. In Gloucester, we were there last week and announced 7 supportive housing projects. This is a new type of housing. Everyone's living longer. Hooray. We're all getting older, and that's a good thing. But you need some supportive systems around you as you grow. Nobody says, I can't wait to grow old and go to a nursing home. People generally want to stay in their community, and having a support system through supportive grants, something called the Housing Innovation Fund, is going to help us think about how we provide that innovative rental housing, especially in particular for seniors. And look, we know housing is healthcare. We had a group of hospital CEOs talking with us about the inability for them to attract and retain talent to provide healthcare. And we know that if you have a stable roof over your head, you are much better prepared to weather whatever type of health impacts might come your way and hopefully prevent them as well. We need to do more to draw the lines that highlight the intersection for people around us who are struggling with saying yes and putting their hand up for housing. Too often people have a cognitive dissonance around the things they like and enjoy, their favorite restaurant, the person that they drop their kids off to in the morning, or somebody who might take care of an older adult, the heroes during COVID who worked in our grocery stores and stocked our shelves. We need places for them to live in our communities too. And that's why we're making stops in Worcester and Boston and the South Shore and the Berkshires to talk with leaders and executives about the ways in which housing is a social determinant of health and critical to supporting the Massachusetts world-class healthcare workforce and, frankly, innovation economy. We are out there working it, but we need your help in moving this agenda forward. It is going to take all of us. We are working towards a Massachusetts where people, businesses, and industries that they want to move here, they want to stay here and grow here, because we are that affordable, accessible, equitable innovation capital of the nation. But that is going to take teamwork and partnership. That's what we're going to need to keep moving Massachusetts forward. And we're really grateful and just elated to have such a wonderful partner in CHAPA, and frankly, in all of you. Creating a more affordable Massachusetts is going to take a team approach. So we need you to advocate for this, to call your friends and neighbors, your family, ask them to be a housing champion. Let's beat down some of the myths that housing creates hardships for communities. Housing creates opportunities for communities. Density is your friend if you want a vibrant downtown, if you want a place for all walks of life. You need different housing when you're 20 than you do from when you're 40 and when you're 80. How do we make sure we've got a healthy housing ecosystem that can support the Commonwealth that we all are grateful to live in and have such gratitude for the investments that we're making here? So we want to make sure you're helping us advocate to join the team that we're going to need to build to help us make sure this Commonwealth is a place where everyone can live, can grow, and can thrive. So we're looking forward to working with you to ensure we make Massachusetts the state we know it all can be, and housing is the key to unlocking our full potential. So thanks for being here. Know that you have allies and partners and leaders helping at the state level, but it's really going to take the local level and all walks of life in every industry to put us over the top in creating the housing we need. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. You can do the little Zoom applause again. I wish it were a thunderous roar because I know you'd get a big round of applause. I want to really uplift a few things that Lieutenant Governor mentioned. Clearly, the Affordable Homes Act is so crucial. Everyone call your representative right now. We hope that this will be taken up by the House of Representatives immediately after the Memorial Day holiday. It's a $4.1 billion investment and a range of tools that will help us to create the homes and preserve the homes that we need. I also just want to make a comment about the name Affordable Massachusetts. So we've gotten some feedback that the name isn't resonating with everyone. We will find the right name. The point is, we need all of you part of this work. We need to change the conversation. We need to move to yes. And when I say yes, it really is all kinds of homes, like the Lieutenant Governor was saying. This means market rate homes. It means home ownership. It means supportive housing. We need to make sure that out of those 20,000 deeply affordable homes that we need to create, that half of those are for people who need supportive housing. When we see how many people are experiencing homelessness, we know it's a housing challenge. And some people just need deeply affordable. Some people need supportive. We need to do it all. This means public housing. It means accessory dwelling units. It means smaller homes on smaller lots. It means senior housing. It means family housing. It's all the housing. Secretary Augustus often speaks about through the whole life cycle. That is what we're talking about. The homes that we need at every stage of our lives, and so that our Commonwealth is a strong one where everyone has a place that they can thrive. I will now turn it over to Jesse Mermel from DeWitt Impact Group, who is helping CHAPA to run this campaign and to support all of you. Jesse?
Thanks so much, Rachel. And thank you to nearly 300 of you for, as the Lieutenant Governor said, giving up your lunch hour. I hope you're all still like eating a sandwich while you're here. It's very important. But we're really, really grateful that you're taking the time and that you care so much about the future of housing here in Massachusetts. We know that it's impacting the organizations that you lead, your communities, and we're just so grateful to be here with you. And I don't think it can be said enough, the champions, the advocates that we have in the Healy Driscoll administration with Secretary Augustus are just a huge boon to this effort. We would not be here without their leadership and their commitment. So we're incredibly grateful. As Rachel mentioned, we are launching an incredibly exciting and vital campaign. Working title, Affordable Massachusetts. Stay tuned for what the rebrand will be. But you've heard from the Lieutenant Governor and from Rachel, from Betty, from Jay, from Beth, from JD about the moment that we are in, the need that we are facing. You probably didn't need to hear it because you are living it every single day as you try to hire, as you try to bring people into your organizations. And so we are taking advantage of the unique role that you as business leaders, as nonprofit leaders, as employers, as key figures in your sectors can play in helping us move the needle and build more housing here in Massachusetts. So we're launching this coalition, taking advantage of the incredible power, the incredible influence that each of you has at the state level, at the local level, with your friends and neighbors, with your peers in your sectors to help make this change. And here's how that's going to work. It is going to be a broad, diverse, deep coalition. Every sector, every size business, every corner of the Commonwealth, every single person is welcome here. And as Rachel said, there may be areas, even in the housing space, where we disagree on some issues, but everybody agrees at this table that we need 200,000 new homes here in Massachusetts by 2030 if we're going to continue to have a thriving economy that's leading the nation. So this is what we're going to do. My colleagues, Emily and Whitney and Megan, have been dropping links in the chat. Step one, join the coalition. That's the baseline level of commitment. Lend your name. Tell us you're in. We know you're all busy. You might not have time to do more than that. We will be so grateful to just have your name. Let us show how deep and how broad this coalition is of folks, again, across the Commonwealth who believe in what we are trying to do. So please click on that link. Emily just dropped it. Fill out the little form there and join the coalition. From there, it is choose your own adventure. There are so many ways that you can engage in this work. We know you're busy. We know for some of you this might be new. We're going to make it as easy as we possibly can. Here are some of the things that you can do. You can help mobilize in your community. If you're an employer that has a business in one community and maybe lives in another, we'll work with you to figure out where makes sense based on what's happening in those cities and towns. We'll help prepare you to speak at town meeting, to speak at a zoning board of appeals meeting. I know it might not be the sexiest offer that you've ever had in your lives to go speak at town meeting, but let me tell you, this is where the rubber meets the road. I'm a former select board member for 6 years in Brookline. It is at that local level. I see the lieutenant governor, a former mayor, nodding her heads. It is in municipal government where so many of these decisions are being made. We will let you know what it takes to sign up and speak at town meeting. We will help you with your talking points. We'll make sure you're on the list to speak. It is not going to be glamorous, but it is going to be effective. You can write op-eds, which again, we'll help you with, and letters to the editor. You can talk to reporters. You can meet with elected officials, and we will hold your hand the entire way. Some of it will be an investment of your time, and we know how valuable that is, but it is what is going to get these housing units built and what is going to help make our economy and all of your organizations so much stronger. The other thing we're going to do is we're going to be nimble. We know that this is a long-term journey. There are some immediate opportunities like MBTA Communities Act that are in front of us with deadlines, but this is a long-term situation. There are going to be opportunities that are going to come up, and we're going to work with you to figure out how we seize them. There are going to be challenges. We're going to work with you to figure out how we address them. There are going to be concerns. There are going to be new ideas. We have an outline of how this is going to work, but we want your feedback, and we want to work with you to address all of the hills and valleys that are going to be a part of this. And as I said, we are in it for the long term. We know that this isn't a 6-month or a 12-month endeavor. This is a coalition that's going to work at those super sexy town meeting and zoning board of appeals meetings, but also supporting the lieutenant governor and governor's Affordable Homes Act and all of the truly essential work that's happening at the state level. Business leaders, nonprofit leaders, communities that are creating jobs, that are employing folks here in Massachusetts and that are struggling because of the housing crisis have such a unique and powerful role to play in this campaign and in this work. And our firm, DeWitt Impact Group, and I want to acknowledge my colleagues, Megan and Emily again, are so thrilled to be partnering with CHAPA to execute on their idea, to mobilize all of you and to make this different at every single level of Massachusetts government. You've already read and heard, I'm sure, that the lieutenant governor and the governor have launched an incredibly exciting C4 initiative to support their message and their work around housing. We're proud to be in close coordination with them and so many other colleagues doing incredible work in housing who are on this Zoom. There is a ton of work to do. It is going to be tactical. It is going to be on the ground. It will, again, not necessarily be glamorous, but we are so confident that it will be effective. And I can't tell you how heartened we are to see the numbers and the response that we have today as we launch this. We know that with 300 people on this call, there are hundreds and thousands more of you that we haven't reached. So another part of our ask is helping us to tap into your networks, to grow this coalition, to bring more people to the table. There is so much work to be done, but the fact that that we're all here together today with the Lieutenant Governor and so many other fantastic leaders, I think is making us all feel overwhelmingly optimistic about how successful this effort can be. And so with that, we do have a little bit of time left. I know people have been dropping questions in the chat. I can tell you we will not get to all of them, but we're going to do our best. People have been putting them in the chat and direct messaging me. So I am going to be the moderator here and read some of the questions. Let's see. I think this is a great question for Rachel. Someone would love to know, how can smaller nonprofit employers help with this work? We're certainly seeing the impact on hiring too. And I think that's from Rebecca. Rachel, what do you think?
Speak up and join this coalition. We really will help you to identify areas where you can speak up. And I think it's important both at the state level, where we're all joining together for things like the Affordable Homes Act to make sure that gets passed, but then also wherever employees live, to be supporting them in showing up and speaking up locally. It's just, when we're all working together, we can certainly change this conversation to be a more positive one.
Great. Thank you, Rachel. LG, I think this is for you. How can we direct constituents to support your bill?
Yeah, I mean, I think the best thing you can do is reach out to your legislator, particularly if you're someone who does not normally talk to your state representative or your state senator, letting them know not just that you support the bill, but what it might mean to you, your family, somebody you care about, somebody that you work with, to be able to have the resources they need to stay in Massachusetts. I think there is a lot of consensus that we need more housing, but like anything, the details often get caught up in lots of things that have nothing to do with housing. So making sure they know how important this is to you is really critical. And I would just underscore at the local level as well, the biggest battles we have are really in local government at the community level. If you've ever been to a zoning hearing or a city council or a town meeting, an annual town meeting, there's a lot of misinformation that can get thrown around. So having someone, and we're happy to help and train through this coalition, like do the myth busting. More kids are not necessarily bad for your community. It's actually a value add. We can do things to reduce traffic. These bills also appear money for infrastructure to help support some of the impacts that can come from growth. And frankly, not passing something like the MBTA Communities Act also comes with detriment. Just like there's a policy of no that exists in a lot of places, and that has consequences. And being that voice to stand up and acknowledge that. It's hard, but it's really, really helpful.
Great. Lieutenant Governor, I think this might be for you as well. We've had a few questions about senior housing that I am going to go rogue here and try to combine into one question.
Sure.
Obviously, MBTA Communities Act makes development of more senior housing possible, allowing seniors to downsize in their own community if that's what they want. And that obviously has a domino effect, allowing more family housing to open up. Because it's so expensive to age here in Massachusetts, there's a deep need for subsidies like MRVP. I know this is getting a little bit in the weeds, but what is the opportunity there for advancing senior housing? And is there anything this coalition can do to support the effort to expand MRVP or support affordable senior housing in other ways?
I would say a couple of things. One is a lot of that action is underway. We are a state that prides ourselves on supporting a number of state-funded affordable housing through housing authorities. In fact, we have the most state-owned public housing of any state in the nation, 42,000 units, serving about 70,000 people, the vast majority of whom are seniors, if you think about the older age public affordable housing in your community. We also support vouchers. We are actively in the process of always distributing vouchers for folks who are in our emergency assistance shelter, for instance. One of the problems we have, though, is there isn't a unit at the other end of that voucher, even when you have one to utilize. And we know there are sometimes stigmas associated with vouchers. We're working closely with the Attorney General's office on sort of the fair housing laws and making sure they're enforced. When we think about senior housing, we also know that that 42,000 units we have are older and in need of improvement. So we're looking to upgrade that housing, and by doing so, also adding additional units to that. creating mixed income communities that can serve seniors and working families and at a range of incomes, 60% AMI, 80% AMI, folks who might have much greater vulnerabilities, 30% of area median income and the like. And we're also, through these dollars, having something called an innovation fund. How can we co-locate housing? The high school in Salem, as they're building a new addition, is also looking to put housing on the campus. They have a lot of space there. It's used during the day. It's not used in the evening. That's housing that could support new teachers, paraprofessionals, folks who work in the cafeteria. They need an affordable place to live. And unfortunately, Salem is out of reach for a lot of folks that we need and rely on, but aren't able to afford to live there. We can co-locate housing on college campuses with our hospitals. So there is a lot of innovation that we see can be served specifically to add housing. But when we think about seniors being on a college campus, the ability to free up where they might be living if they're in a single family home and be in a more walkable, vibrant environment, that's my idea of a really enjoyable golden years. So we are both open to and working with and providing resources to help incentivize all of those options.
Great. Thank you. Never too soon to start planning for those golden years, Lieutenant Governor. Rachel, I think this is a great question for you. From Gail, what can we do if our city has already passed MBTA community zoning? Can we help get our friends in other places recruiting, or is there other work to do in our communities?
Yes, 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 yes. That is where the fun begins. When you actually have the zoning in place. Now, how do you turn that zoning into homes? And so there's so much that can be done, whether your community has the Community Preservation Act, and you can now invest money into affordability. There are changes you could be advocating for accessory dwelling units. There are just so many more things that can be done. And I recommend people feel free to put it in our chat to check out our Municipal Engagement Initiative page on our website. We have a group that is working with communities across the state, helping to build these coalitions that really come up with what are your goals for your community and how can you actually turn zoning into housing. So there's a lot that can be done, and definitely support your neighbors and people in other communities and show that we did it. You know, we so often hear about one or two communities that are pushing back against the new zoning law, and there's 68 communities that have moved it forward. So show that you're proud and that you are saying yes. And again, when our communities start saying yes to housing, we can do the how. We can really get to how we're going to make that happen. Massachusetts, again, we're in an innovative state. We can figure out the how, but we're stopping ourselves and we're holding ourselves back when we don't put in the rules that allow for it. So much that you can do. Check out our municipal engagement page and also sign on to the campaign, because we'll support you in being able to do more in your community.
Rachel and Lieutenant Governor, you two can fight over who wants to answer this, but from Gloria, low-income families in the heart of Boston are required to jump through many hoops. How is this going to affect the systemic racial discrimination in housing?
I'll start, and Rachel, feel free to add in. Look, we know that we are dealing with a decades-long challenge when it comes to building the type of housing we need in the places we need it, and that it has had impacts disproportionately on communities, on neighborhoods, particularly on communities of color who have either been displaced sometimes by things like urban renewal, who haven't had access to financing. And that's why this bill really does look at areas like gateway cities. We put our thumb on the scale to try and provide additional tools, places in economically disadvantaged neighborhoods. How are we better serving opportunities to produce the type of housing we need, and ensuring those that have been harmed in the past by some of, I will say, unintended consequences in some instances and others not, to limit individuals' ability to purchase a home or to live in a healthy community and in a safe way. We have lots of folks who are living in current public affordable housing that needs investment, that hasn't had the capital that it needs to really consider our own state-owned public housing safe and accessible. So I think there are ways within this bill that we are really trying to understand how we can play a meaningful role in ensuring that we have a more equitable production of housing and preservation of housing and better serve all of the individuals throughout the Commonwealth, particularly the folks who are in our urban areas and who have been in economically disadvantaged areas.
Right, absolutely. Picking up on that, I mean, like the Lieutenant Governor was saying, we have a history in Massachusetts, in our country, based on redlining and division and really impacting people of color more than anyone else. And so this is a moment in time to right this ship, to go in the opposite direction, to put ourselves on a path to equity. There's a lot of really good things that are happening now and more that needs to happen. So in the Affordable Homes Act, everything from homeownership to funding that will be available. It could be available for acquisition, like Betty was talking about, being able to buy properties in communities and keep them affordable. And then I think it's really important that we think about fair housing not only as a way to stop discrimination, but affirmatively furthering fair housing is part of the law. How do we make it easier for people to find, apply, get the affordable and also the market rate homes that people have been kept from for so long? So there's a lot of work that we are doing here at CHAPA and our Fair Housing Committee. There's a lot of work that's happening at the state level, looking at, can we create a common application for all of the affordable housing out there so people don't have to go to every single place and have to fill out application after application. And I think the investment being made in programs like the Commonwealth Builder, creating home ownership opportunities in gateway cities, in neighborhoods of Boston, in communities of color, as well as new proposals in the Affordable Homes Act to create more home ownership opportunities and have funds to acquire more housing and create more rental housing. It's about taking down the barriers and creating so much more. And I think that we have a lot of opportunities to do that right now, both with the laws that have been passed, now implementing them, and the laws like the Affordable Homes Act that are now before the legislature.
Great.
Any more, Jesse?
We have so many more. We're not going to get to all of them. I think we probably have time for 2 more. I'm just scrolling through here on my list. Let's see. Probably a conversation for the LG, and then I know you have to jump. Is there work going on with regional planning organizations to change housing-related zoning bylaws?
Oh my goodness, so much. I mean, like so much of what we do, we rely on partnerships. And our regional planning agencies have really been key to providing the technical assistance, particularly in our smaller towns, who, for whom they often don't have a large staff to help with writing the bylaws, convening community members. Like the key aspect in so many places is bringing people together to share with them what's at stake when we don't provide the type of zoning we need or the type of building or the housing that we need, to help review the data that they have. What are the demographics in your community? Like, where are you growing? And to do the land use analysis. Where could we support more growth from an infrastructure perspective, from a technological perspective? And so regional planning agencies have been taking on yeoman's work in a number of places. We see them as key assets and allies. They have benefited from some of the technical assistance the state has been funding. So I know Rachel can make connections there as well, but they have been key allies in our efforts to support zoning, to provide communities with information so they can make informed decisions about how best to meet their housing needs.
Great. Well, Lieutenant Governor, thank you for spending your lunch with us. And I know you have to jump off a few minutes early, so we're really grateful for your time and your leadership on this.
We can do this. I know we can. And together is the best way to do it. So thanks everyone for your time. Appreciate it.
Great. And Rachel, we have a perfect closing question. Let's say my organization signs on to this. What's next?
So much. Okay, we will be in touch, because after you sign on and you let us know a little bit about what you're interested in, we will plug you in right away. So that could mean that we help you write an opinion piece this summer, for the newspaper in your area, or for the Globe, or something like that. It could mean that we see where you are in the state, and do you have a vote that's coming up that we can help you to get ready for? That would actually, move the needle in your community, whether it's zoning or a particular housing development that's being proposed. So the first step is signing on, and for us to be able to show at the state level and in our communities, we are all joining together. We are calling for the 200,000 homes we need. We are stating explicitly that we need them across income levels. Changing that message is going to be a game changer, because for anyone who's been in a local meeting, that the overwhelming sentiment is no, 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 and we can't do this because of X, Y, Z. We are going to turn that with more and more numbers joining together. We'll then work with you to figure out what is the right level of engagement and how much do you want to be getting involved, and we will absolutely plug you in.
Perfect. And I'm thrilled to turn things over to wrap things up to someone who has truly been not just a leader, but maybe one of the leaders in the business community around the state in fighting for housing. Greg Reedman is the president and CEO of the Charles River Regional Chamber, and he has the last word today.
Thank you, everybody. Good afternoon. And I think, first of all, we're so fortunate to have an administration that is so committed to this. We've had 2 administrations in a row that have been really committed to this, and which of course tells us that we have a lot more work to do because we've had administrations in favor and we still have so much more. And I want to end really with a couple of quick thoughts. One is thank you to the housing advocates and the environmentalists and the clergy and everyone else who's been on the ground game of this fight, including CHAPA, for so many years, for decades. And then say that what's been missing in a lot of cases is the voice of the business community at the table, and urge every business owner and manager and employee to make sure that you speak up and be part of this conversation, because all the environmentalists and the housing advocates and the clergy can talk about a lot of issues related to housing. Only we can talk with authority about what this means for jobs. Only we can say, you're frustrated by how long it takes to get through the emergency room. It's because there's not enough housing. You want to know why you can't find childcare for your kid or senior care for your loved one? It's because we don't have the housing. You want to know why the grocery store shelves are empty in the afternoon? It's because we don't have enough housing. You want to know why your favorite store or restaurant is not open on weekends or closes early? It's because we don't have enough housing. We need, as a business community, to get there and be heard and make sure that the public understands. You know, the Republic is not quite sure why we need to do this, and certainly why we need to do this next to, you know, in your neighborhood. It's because we've got the jobs. We have the opportunity here to really move things forward if we together deliver our combined messages and stand as one. So thank you, everybody. And sign up for that campaign, because that's the way to stay informed and connected here.
Great. Thanks, everybody. We'll give you 2
You went on mute, Jesse. We're giving everyone 2 minutes back. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. We will be in touch. Please sign up. We are going to change this. We are going to get to the 200,000 homes. We're going to preserve our homes. We got this. Thank you, everyone.